So yeah, I started with this Woolworth one. Bones reveal beast as big as the Woolworth building. The head bones of a prehistoric monster unearthed by Dr. Roy Chapman Andrews at the southern edge of the Gobi Desert, Mongolia today, were described by him as indicating the existence of a colossal animal about the size of the Woolworth building if the building were in a horizontal position, 792 feet. We found a monster in the same area in 1925. The saddle-shaped headed creature discovered on this expedition is believed perhaps to be the great-grandfather of the 1925 monster. The head is very broad, and peculiar feature is that the nose narrows in the middle and gradually broadens towards the nostrils. Dr. Andrews said was more than satisfied with his discoveries. He considered his finds vied with his findings of the dinosaur eggs in 1923. So he found dinosaur eggs that were like as big as a train car. Pretty crazy. The explorer said his discoveries included lots of, won't even bother pronouncing that, fossils, and also several splendid skulls of a new type of nasal horned Titanorthridae. Yeah, these dinosaur names, these Latin names are crazy. Quite different from any North American lizard. So yeah, the Gobi Desert is crazy. I've got, again, this is the biggest one I found, 800 feet, but they go all the way down to 100 feet, 400 feet. They've found monsters in the Badlands in Wyoming. They're not like the normal lizard or dinosaur. I'm sorry. We're told they're just like big. Sometimes they're aquatic, sometimes they're standing. They walk on all fours usually. They're not like the Tyrannosaurus Rex type. That makes no sense. Biologically, the animal would not survive. If it fell over, it'd be dead.
Mm-hmm.
The two big legs and the tiny little forearms. They're often like a lizard you would see today, just magnified to a huge, huge extent. And some of the biggest, this one's great because it's a land creature, but the biggest ones usually are in the ocean. So it kind of shows you that if we're talking gravity, which I tend to lean towards more of a density type of explanation, that this correlates nicely with the tropical idea that pressures were different, oxygen levels were much higher, right? Because if you shrink things down to a micro scale, when you look at the way the biology and the microcosm of a tropical rainforest, everything is living on the tree or around the tree or in the tree. It's in the inside of it, it's on the outside of it, or it's up in the canopy. And you take that and you magnify it to 100 times, 1,000 times. I have articles about petrified trees that were over 1,000 feet tall. They found a subterranean forest of trees that were over 1,000 feet, and they're thin. Some are really thick, some are really thin. So they're like branches of a mega tree. And I think the large skeletons really enhance that whole idea of the kind of vapor canopy esque giant that existed in a previous age. This one is hunting a live prehistoric monster from Mississippi, 1910. One of the most remarkable scientific discoveries ever made in the wilds of New Guinea, a marvelous race of pygmies, a monster mammal larger than an elephant named the Gazika, wrought havoc against the pygmies. Here's the article. You see how big this is. This is a pygmy. These
Damn.
people, here's a footprint of the creature
Damn.
next to the pygmies. The tallest was like 4 feet, but the average was like 3.5 feet. So to give you an idea of how big this thing is, right? Here's the British. They're hunting this thing, big game hunters again, and the pygmy in the arms. This thing, when they first come upon it, it's attacking a village and carrying the pygmies off. Here's another, just to show you, they don't kill the creature, but the pygmies were able to show that they had some bones of these creatures. Look how big this is.
Holy shit.
So the largest trees ever found were petrified, and they were found here in America. And like I said, there are many over 1,000 feet.
It's beautiful symmetry that's
It
going on
is.
right there.
We have so many sinks; it's insane. So yeah, I'll finish this article off really quick. They found that the 100-foot tall giant was turned into quartz and silver ore. It is well known to us all that petrified horses are plenty in the Comstock Ledge, some of them over 50 feet high. So when they talked about the animals and the giant saddles they were finding, they're on 50-foot horses. Also, numerous huge spurs, which none but monstrous men could appropriately wear. No human bones except bones of contention have yet been found in the Comstock, but some of these are of great size especially those found a few years ago. Petrified wild cats are still found throughout the mining region. They find petrified wolves that are 15 feet at the shoulder. They have petrified cats that are 30 feet long, on and on, endless. And yeah, for again, your listeners that are new to my material, it's hundreds of these now.
You imagine the life like us humans during this time, the fight or flight, the constant state of survival. You know what I mean, dude?
Yeah, I mean
Like,
that's why I think this concept of all these warring tribes and all this came after a reset. This came after
yeah.
some kind of event. Red-headed American giants with strange powers. 3,000-year-old records studied. Fighting red-headed Indian tribe denoted by 10,000 well-preserved specimens from Nevada mountain cave. One of my largest subterranean cave systems is from Nevada. And if anyone looks into these deep underground bases, they correlate. Like if I made a map of my cave system articles, it would be like right on top of or right next to a supposed deep underground base. So I think they were just taking these articles, and over time if something crazy happened, they let the spelunkers do all the work. Whatever they bring to the surface, it was easy pickings. Hey, I'll give you $500 for that. Done. I'll get, well, no, 1,000. Done. They just would buy it. And then if something crazy happened, like people never came back, or they encountered something crazy, then the military would get involved and they'd be like, listen, you can't talk about this. Because there were plenty of my articles where the authorities were involved and they were like, you can't talk about this. And they would say in the article, we're not allowed to talk about anything or say what we see or find. And then that's where you never see the article written about it again. Smithsonian was the number one with that. There was a contract involved. If they bought something from you, the amount you couldn't disclose and you weren't allowed to talk about it. They started that whole process. So yeah, like I said, Nevada Mountain Cave, the article's from Berkeley, but it takes place in Nevada. April 1st, preserved for 3,000 years under debris in a bat-infested Nevada mountain cave. The records of an extinct race are being studied by University of California anthropologists. 10,000 specimens recovered from the grotto in a remarkable state of preservation are now regarded as chronicles of a fighting, red-headed tribe of American Indians who were exterminated while Europe was still a wilderness. I can't tell you how many articles say stuff like this where they're like, this is so old that Europe was a wilderness or didn't exist or was in its infancy. So imagine that, we're told the opposite, right? When we are talking about antiquities of America, Europe was this giant, endless, sprawling cities everywhere, hundreds of millions of people. And we could barely get a newspaper set up in California until 1840.
Yeah.
No, something happened. I think the most recent event is here in the Americas, and that we were slowly repopulating America, and that takes time. The orphan trains, you connect all these dots. You need to have your feet, your fingers in a million different pools to connect all these different dots. And I'm sure with you covering all this subject matter, you can kind of see what I'm getting at.
Man.
The cavern is known as Lovelock Cave, a shelf-like niche in the hillside formed thousands of years ago by the wave action of an ancient lake, long since disappeared. The vanished body of water is known to geologists as Lake Lahontan. I did a whole video series on this lake and the crazy stuff they found by it. Have you ever heard of the Carson footprints?
Yes.
This prehistoric highway they found, petrified. Well, part of that you don't hear about today is that they found footprints of giant men, 10 to 12 feet tall men, and a giant dog. So these hunters were hunting with a dog, and they were building a blind. This is the literal article. You can find it on my YouTube channel. These giant men built a blind next to this lake. This lake was huge. In the center of this lake was a pyramid that I also have a video on.
It kind of reminds me of the place in Texas where there's dinosaur and human footprints together.
Oh yeah, there's tons. Man walked with beast without a doubt.
Yep.
In my material, I've presented hundreds of articles
The thing is, man, were they our pets or were we the pets? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. But in this case, the dog is following the man.
Yeah.
And they go literally into depth, and they're like, he built a blind in the bushes next to this lake, and he kills a giant elephant. It's a mastodon. huge, and he drags it. This is all shown in the mud. Okay, and then something happened to freeze that in time. So what event happens where these muddy footprints are frozen into stone in a flash, right? Some
Man.
kind of plasma event. It's not a
Yeah.
wave. A wave would just wash all that away. It's some kind of fire, brimstone, plasma type thing. So you have these giant men kill this elephant, this huge mastodon, and they drag it. How big are these dudes? 10, 12 feet, right? That's what they estimated by the stride of the men. And this dog was huge. I mean, who knows how big this dog
Man.
was, but gigantic. So this is in the same area. Okay. So the cave near Lovelock, Nevada, the cave is about 22 miles southwest of Lovelock, Nevada. The people who inhabited it are vaguely mentioned in Paiute Indian legends as cannibalistic savages devoid of fear who were annihilated in a 3-year war with the Paiutes about 1000 BC. Now, remember, the Paiute Indians themselves talk about all of these buried ancient cities. They attributed them often to giant redheaded men. Some were cannibalistic, some were not. I think the cannibalism is part of what I said, that after some of these people survived underground, like these people, through an event. And due to lack of food and who knows what else, the trauma of the event, I don't know. I think some were cannibalistic, some were not. And all these Indians have different legends that some were friendly, some were not friendly. Mentioned in the Paiute legend as Saidukas or Tule eaters, the auburn-haired tribe was credited with strange powers. According to legend, they were able to leap into the air, seize arrows that were shot at them, and turn them back at their attackers. They were exterminated, it is believed, in a fierce charge against the cave by the enemy. Suddenly wiped out. It is thought that the sudden extermination may account for the preservation of so many possessions of the ancient people. The relics have been kept by the dry Nevada climate and are in a state of petrifaction comparable with that of the relics found in Egypt and Peru. Among the objects discovered are of them buried under 14 feet of debris were profuse tactile material, including basketry and matting, wooden implements, weapons, and sandals. Professor A.L. Krober of the University of California declared the material almost wholly pre-Caucasian, having a resemblance of the native culture of California in historical times. He termed it immensely valuable because of the richness of the whole series of objects. So a lot of these cave systems are buried, like the really good stuff's buried. And they talk a lot about a flood pushing tons of animals and men into these cave systems. And some of these cave systems are 5,000 feet up.
Damn.
So there was some kind of event. Now, not only that, they're buried under clay. And in this case, they say they're buried under bat guano. Now, when you see how long it takes and how many bats it takes to add an inch of guano, it takes hundreds and who knows it. That population of bats has to grow. There are many variables here, but we're talking, 1,000-year-ish. Sometimes it varies, sometimes it's less, but yeah. So these red-headed giants are found all over America. And next time you have me back, we'll jump right into the first inhabitants of America were giants in physique who fought wild beasts in deadly combat 25,000 or 50,000 years ago.
Do you want to help support Beyond Forbidden and receive extra content that's not seen anywhere else? By becoming a patron, a few things you will receive are the full-length 90-minute or 120-minute podcast episode. Members will also receive a private link to the video podcast and will only be exclusive to Patreon members. In-person, face-to-face interviews with some of the most well-known, respected researchers. Behind-the-scenes footage of interviews not seen anywhere else. And that's just a few perks. So what do you have to lose? Cut out one brain-rotting, overly processed Happy Meal a month that doesn't do anything beneficial for your mind, body, and spirit, and become a Patreon for just $5.